This is 20thLevelCommoners for September 11th, 2014. Hello, anybody who is actually listening to us right now. This is... Welcome. You're on the forefront of a revolution right now, because it's a new podcast, and you're about to have your socks blown off. I'm Vincel and Cody. I am here with my co-host...
Cody Johnston.
Yep. And we are going to teach you a thing or two about Pathfinder. A little bit about ourselves. I am a student studying production, and thought I'd do this podcast because it seems like a lot of people want to get into role-playing because
it's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's various reasons, but a lot of them seem put off by a lot of them, like kind of math calculations, just how complicated the rules get. Especially in a game like Pathfinder that has like a big 500-page core rulebook.
Not a lot of hand-holding.
Yeah, and I mean, even add in the supplemental stuff, we're looking at maybe 1,000 pages. So we thought we'd maybe go through, break it down. So the way this show is going to work is we're going to pick a class every week, and we're going to go through it. We're going to break it down for you, kind of give our thoughts on it, how its abilities works, what kind of archetypes are kind of interesting, how viable they are in the early, middle, and late games, and then we're going to cap it off with a little build each of us brings that we're not going to know about, but it's going to be awesome. But today, we're going to go over some basics, some stuff that you might want to know before you start playing. So, just what some terminology means, things of that nature, how spells works, how saves work, all of that fun stuff. And Cody, if you want to introduce yourself, because I totally skipped over you.
Keep a little bit there. I'll forgive you.
Sorry about that.
My name's Cody. I am an adventurer. I've been playing Pathfinder for about 2.5 years. Been role-playing since I was about 12, 13. Moved on from AD&D to Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. Done a few other systems. The Dragon Age system, Game of Thrones system. Tephra, which we're doing right now, pretty big fan of, 4th edition. But I think us and everyone in our group would probably have to admit that Pathfinder is the one that's closest to everyone's heart.
Mm-hmm. And the little thing about my experience is I do not have nearly that much experience. I've done Pathfinder. I have done a little True 20 system called Blue Rose, and I tried to do a Mutants and Masterminds campaign once. It didn't go over very well, but I'm not as experienced as Cody, which is why I have him along. But yeah, so some of the basics. So let's just kind of actually go over kind of the process I think we go through when we try and create a character, because that's really where it all starts.
Sounds fair.
So kind of the basic stuff about creating character is the basic setups are your stats, your race, your class. And everything kind of revolves around those three things. And I think what we'll do is we'll break down the stats first and just kind of go through what all those entail. So the first stat is strength. If you look on a character sheet, it'll be at the top there. That one's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Is the measurement by how hard you hit things or lift things?
Yeah. And role-playing wise, yeah. Gameplay-wise, though, it affects kind of melee attack rolls. Basically, if you're going to be a big, stompy fighter dude, that is a stat you want. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Dexterity would be the one down under that, which is basically pretty much what it sounds like.
Agility. It is the ability to move fast, to dodge, to aim accurately.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually the one you'll roll if you're doing... that is the stat that governs ranged attacks, and if you have the right feats, it can actually govern melee as well.
So also good for fighters.
Yeah, if you want to play a certain type of fighter. I think after that we've got Constitution, which is
your health, your hit points.
Which is, so that's basically a stat
You're
everyone.
measuring by how easy it is to stay alive.
Yeah, so Constitution actually is okay for any class, I think, to have.
And yet, we're the ones who seem to dump it pretty often.
Yeah, I think I know Trevor, who's a guy we play with, always likes to take a couple points, and that's probably for the best. Honestly, if you're a new player, taking a couple points in con might be a good idea because it will give you that extra HP to maybe keep you alive if a misplay happens.
I always thought it was a bit ironic. Most role players complain about dumping charisma. The role-playing stat, the one that doesn't have much direct usage on the game if you're not a sorcerer or a bard. But, we dump our health. We suffer for our art.
Actually, you actually played a paladin, which is like a holy fighter without any con, didn't you?
Yeah, I justified that pretty well, even though he was like a half-orc, but...
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
He had full plate mail. He could heal himself. I figured, he doesn't really need a sound body. He's got like 4 inches of steel.
Yeah, But after that, we've got intelligence. And intelligence is exactly what it sounds like. It is how smart you are on a more objective level, I guess, your IQ.
Yes, it is the ability to obtain and process information.
Yeah, so we'll get into this more when we get into spells, but this is one of 3 stats that'll govern how powerful your spells are and how many you can get in a turn, in a day. But basically, if you're playing a spellcaster, this is one of 3 that you'll want. The other 2 we'll get to in a second. We're actually going to get to one of them right now. It's called Wisdom. Wisdom. You like a segue?
It is the other half of brain power. As it says in the Dungeons & Dragons Basic, that intelligence is what tells you that it's raining, but it's your wisdom that tells you to put on a parka.
So yeah, wisdom is actually a skill that doesn't really get used that often unless you have it.
It's very useful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your willpower. It keeps your mind controlled. It's also good for perception, which is objectively, unfairly, disgustingly, we'll discuss later, the best skill in the game.
And not enough classes have it. Trust me. But
too many classes have it.
Really? Because I think a lot of times we end up in a party that doesn't have perception. Yeah, but I guess in the campaign we were in, everyone had it. But after that, the last but certainly not least, well, maybe if you're talking to some people, charisma, which is kind of a weird one to explain. Because I think a lot of people when they think charisma kind of just assume it's your looks, like how good looking you are. But
it's really more of a force of personality.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's not that complicated, but it's I think the stat that gets most easily debated on and confused.
Yeah, it is the dump stat for pretty much every martial class that isn't a cavalier or a samurai.
Yeah, and
frankly, every single, spellcasting class that isn't a cleric or an oracle or a sorcerer.
Yeah, but yeah, though. That is the third of the 3 stats that might govern your spell, and the classes Cody just listed off are the classes that, I guess, run on charisma.
Mm-hmm. And just in case comments come, paladins aren't really a spellcasting class. They don't count.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Get down. Get the deck. All right. Anyway, I guess that wasn't really shots fired, but whatever. So the way stats work in Pathfinder is kind of 10. The stat of 10 on your ability score is
basic human.
Yeah, anything under that, and you are
subhuman.
So anything above that, and you are above average. And actually, a thing a lot of people get confused on the ability modifiers is your ability modifier is the number above 10 that your ability score is cut in half, rounded down. So
subtract 10, cut in half.
Yeah.
Round it down.
So if you had an 18 strength, your ability modifier is +4. And your ability modifier is really what you want to look at when you're coming up with the calculations for your character, because it is what you add to the stats that everything governs. So if you have a +4 strength, you would add that to your attack and damage on role-playing and we'll get to that in a second. But basically, the ability mod is what you want to look at when you're doing all that stuff. But also, I've also got, when you're coming up with classes, the things to know about the classes, I think, are there's three main things that your classes influences, and one of them is how much HP you get, what skills you get, and what kind of weapons and armor you can use. And you go.
I think when picking a class, you really just have to understand what you actually want to do with this character, and then realize what class best fits it. Like, if you want to be this guy who's on the run from the law, he has a lot of woodland skills, you're probably going to want a ranger, maybe a rogue with some, nature skills.
Yeah. And I guess that's really kind of how I guess with us at least, how the character creation process works is we kind of go through, we find a class or an archetype that we like, and then we kind of build a concept around it, or we come up with a concept that we want to do, and then we build around that. I really think kind of the biggest thing that's going to influence your role-playing is your class more than anything else, because I guess it does influence your skills, what you can do.
I've seen some games where it's more about race, but in Pathfinder, it is definitely about class.
Mm-hmm. But we're not going to go over all the classes today. As I said, we're going to go into each one of them individually in depth with each subsequent installment.
A little bit zoomed in.
Because really, you kind of have to break them down to really kind of get what a lot of the classes do. Even the simpler ones like Fighter.
Fighter ones are not as simple as they seem.
Yeah. Though if you are starting, Fighter ones are probably the best option.
And yet newbies always pick rogues, I've noticed.
Because rogues are awesome.
Yeah.
Damage! But actually, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to what all the little numbers mean. So, excuse me. We just went over stats. And so now we're going to go over all the other stuff that you're going to need to know. So basically, we're going to start with hit dice. And hit dice, on a technical level, is how many dice you roll to determine your health. And it is essentially equal to your level.
Yes, for all player characters or NPCs with a character class, your hit dice is equal to your level. For many animals, many monsters, it's kind of like 1/3 or 2/3, depending on what kind of monster they are.
Yeah, 1/3, 2/3 of the level, by the way. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Had to make sure there. But basically, how you determine your HP is each class has a hit dice. And the hit dice is, it depends on the class. It could be a D6 all the way up to a D12.
For the barbarian.
Yeah. And so what you do is every level you roll a dice, and then you add your Constitution modifier and any other kind of bonuses you might have, and that is how much HP you gain for that level. And so melee-focused classes have more, caster/ranger or backline guys have less, but that's how you determine your health. And there are other things that can influence how much health you get.
Like Constitution.
Yeah. And then also there are feats that do it and special things. Going on to base attack bonus. This is basically just... It's just your base attack.
The base attack bonus is a number. It's basically a helper to how easy it is to hit a thing. You add it to your strength or your dex. Either way. The really interesting thing about it, though, is that for every 6 points you get in base attack bonus, you get an extra attack. Mm-hmm. So if you're a 6th level fighter, you get 1 base attack bonus per level. You get to have 2 attacks a turn for a fighter. Mm-hmm. It's a lot less if you're a different class, because a lot of classes, they don't get the full base attack bonus. They get 2/3 what a fighter does, or 1/3 what a fighter does if you're, a wimpy little nerd guy like a wizard.
Yep. Of course, the wizard has other stuff to make up for that.
Yeah. Don't feel sorry for the wizard.
Yeah.
Never feel sorry for the wizard.
And not even at first level.
No. Not in Pathfinder.
No. But, so, another thing is we've kind of gone over, kind of glossed over this, but when to use strength and when to use dex to determine your attack rolls. So basically you use strength, your strength stat, to determine your attack rolls to hit and to do damage whenever you're using a melee weapon or a certain kind of ranged weapon like a composite bow. But you use dexterity whenever you're using a ranged weapon, any kind of ranged weapon.
Or a finesse melee.
Yes. And that's basically, it's just 2 different styles, 2 different ways to hit is what that represents. But it's not that difficult to remember once you get it down. Then also there's the idea of initiative is next. And that is just, in gameplay terms, it is usually just your dex bonus.
It's who goes first.
Yeah. It helps determine who goes first. What happens? You roll a d20, you add your initiative, and then you determine the order from there. But usually it's just your dex bonus. I know some classes get a bonus, like the monk.
And there are a number of feats.
Yeah, and feats can help as well. Your speed is, how fast your character moves. And on a grid style that you will usually find in Pathfinder, each little square on that grid represents 5 feet. So if you want to know how many squares you can move, it is just your speed in feet divided by 5.
Yeah, and it's not impossible to play without a grid on Pathfinder, and that's one of the things about the game. Like 4th edition. 4th edition is effectively not possible to play without a map. It is a miniatures war game. And 3rd edition, 3.5, and Pathfinder, which is based on both of those, it is difficult, but it is possible. If you really don't want a map, if you really just want to go by your imagination, you can do that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not designed for that, though.
Yeah. But, it's possible. I know sometimes we on kind of smaller encounters, we're just like, screw it. We'll just go by imagination. Play it by ear, if you will.
Yeah, if it's something that can be wiped out by 2 spellcasters in 2 rounds, yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to AC, or armor class. And this one, I think, I know this tripped our new player up quite a bit, Steven. But basically, this is how hard you are to hit on most things, and we'll get to that in a second. But you've actually got 3 different ACs.
Yes, your touch AC, your flat-footed AC, and just your AC prime. Mm-hmm. It really is kind of a mixture of 2 stats, the AC prime. It is your armor plus your ability to dodge. So it really kind of is both... What am I trying to get here? How hard it is to get to you through your armor and how hard you are to hit. Add those 2 together, they're both 1 number.
Yeah. And kind of the formula, it's on your character sheet, but kind of the formula is 10 plus your AC.
Dex, plus your armor class you get from your armor.
Yeah, so 10 plus Dex plus armor, your Dex modifier, plus your AC bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And you add all that together. And your touch AC and your flat-footed AC is just minusing one of the aspects. So your touch AC is your AC minus your armor. And that is basically attacks that are not affected by armor, which is mostly what are called touch attacks for spellcasters. Things that just kind of punch through your armor and that you really just have to get out of the way for. And flat-footed is for when you are not able to dodge. It is
when you're surprised.
Yeah. So basically, to calculate your touch AC, you just take away your AC bonus. And to calculate your flat-footed, you take away your Dex bonus. And so they all kind of have their... Different classes kind of have different strength when it comes to that. Like monks and rogues have a really high Dex bonus to their ACs. And so they will have a high base AC and touch AC. But if you catch them flat-footed, they're a lot harder to get.
And they do need those stats because they don't get heavy armor, medium armor, or in the monk's case, any armor at all.
Mm-hmm. And of course the flip side is the guys like fighters, paladins, people who can wear heavy armor, who will have a relatively high flat-footed AC because they don't rely that much on dodging. And they will have a higher base AC, but a much, much lower touch AC. Because the other thing about wearing heavy armor is it restricts how much you get from your Dex bonus. And we'll get into that when we get to gear. But the other form of defense is what are called your saves. And these are basically your ability to resist any kind of effect that gets thrown at you. And you've got three main ones: fortitude, reflex, and will. And every class has a base, kind of like the base attack bonus, has a base save. And then in addition to that, you each save is governed by a stat. So fortitude is governed by constitution. So you would add your base constitution, or your constitution modifier plus the base fortitude save, and that's your full fortitude save. Reflex is dexterity, and will is wisdom. Yeah. But
yeah, that's pretty much all we can say about saves, I think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you can and of course there are other ways to boost your saves. There's items, there's feats.
There are skills that certain classes have.
Mm-hmm. But basically, if you want to have a better chance at negating what a wizard can throw at you, basically, you're going to want a high save. Because that's basically what a spellcaster will target. Spellcasters usually don't go after AC.
One more small trick around that not a lot of people have access to is spell resistance. Now, that's something that drows have. That's something that a lot of creatures from the Underdark have. Dwarves can get it if you trade it for something, one of their racial feats.
And that'll be in the racial traits later on. But yeah, spell resistance is basically kind of a natural immunity to spells, is what it is in a role-playing sense, I think. Or a natural propensity to resist spells.
Yeah.
And basically what it is it's a static number that a caster has to roll over before he can even attempt to hit you with a spell. And that sounds really good, but it's usually not that great.
It's good at low levels.
Yeah. So basically what happens is a caster, to get past that, will roll a d20 and add the stat that governs his spells. He will also add his level. And then if he gets over that, the spell goes through, and then you proceed as normally. You make your save, or he tries to beat your touch. But it's nice to have, because there's always, that small chance that it's that extra wall of defense they have to get over. But spell resistance really doesn't come up that often.
No, it's pretty rare.
It's not very good to get it on an item. Even if you do get it on an item, it's really pretty low, so almost negligible.
Mm-hmm.
And like Cody said, there are a few races that get it. Monks get it too.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, it never came up when we were playing, but I played a monk this past campaign, guys, by the way.
Just like every other campaign?
Yeah. Monks are awesome. You should play one. Bruce Lee. You can be like Bruce Lee. Anyway, what was I saying? Spell resistance.
Spell resistance. And there's a bit of a caveat to that, too, even at low levels, that you don't really face a lot of spellcasters at low level, do you?
No, not really. And even if you do, spellcasters get like one spell at first level, one spell a day.
In ADD.
Yeah.
They get a bunch more than that.
Well, one spell that's actually going to do anything in combat.
Yeah.
Get to that in a second. Skills. This is the big one. Well, sort of. Skills.
It's a clunky one.
It is a very clunky one. But basically, skills are your ability to do things not related to combat, usually.
Not directly related to combat, yeah. There's quite a bit of overlap.
But basically, the way you determine your skills is it's actually really mostly determined by your class. Every class is trained in a number of skills, and if you get so many skill points a level, and if you put ranks into that skill, you are considered better at it. And so it's mostly a role-playing thing, though, as Cody said, there are a few things that they influence in combat. And when you're calculating skills, basically it is your ranks, which is how many skill points you have in it, plus the ability modifier of the stat that governs that skill, and that's all on the character sheet. And if it is a class skill, this is one people miss a lot. If it is a class skill, you are considered trained, and you get a +3 on top of that.
It adds up.
Yes. So, one thing that could be really useful to know is once you pick your skills, there's a third column on the skill list. It's just labeled miscellaneous. On all the skills you have rank in, if you're just starting, it's usually a good idea to put the +3 in that miscellaneous slot, just so you remember it's there. Because that's what our new player did, Steven.
That's what I do.
Yeah. And it's, just to remember it's there. So you're not like looking at your skills and you have 3 out of nowhere that you can't remember, and then you bring it back down. I've done that once. It was pretty bad. But I think now we'll just kind of give a brief overview about all the skills. Just go down the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many skills are there exactly?
A lot.
Yeah.
Exactly a page and a half on my Kindle Fire.
Cute.
Never mind. So the first skill is acrobatics. And acrobatics is kind of what it sounds like.
It's really to jump, run, climb things. No, not climb things. Climb's a separate skill. But it's really to jump over people's heads, get to and from combat.
Basically be the Prince of Persia in battle.
Yeah.
But this skill is governed by your dexterity, so that is the ability you will add to that one. And another thing we forgot to mention is this skill is subject to what's called the armor check penalty.
Yes.
So the armor check penalty, what that is basically if you're wearing heavier armor,
it inhibits your ability to parkour.
Yeah. So basically, you can't do a backflip Neo wall run while wearing plate mail. Not as easily.
Yeah, I remember on my Paladin, I finally had that like final boss, uber death metal full plate mail with spikes on it.
Yeah.
And our friend Trevor actually, he put the spikes on and made it more evil looking because I'm a Paladin.
Yeah.
Thumbs up to you, Trevor. Yeah, and I couldn't do a lot of things, like, sit down in a wooden chair, or walk through doorways, or run at all. So when you guys had a chase scene, I remember I would just sort of, like, hang back, and I'd be like, go get them, guys. I'll just stay here and be fat.
Basically what we're saying is there are a lot of drawbacks to wearing heavy armor.
Yeah.
But
looking fabulous is not one of those drawbacks.
No, it is not. God, that was sexy. Anyway, gameplay-wise, what you're going to use an acrobatics check for mostly is making jump checks and moving through threatened areas. So basically, if you're in combat and you want to charge through a group of enemies, they would all get what's called an attack of opportunity against you, where they would just kind of take a swipe at you as you go by. But what you do then is you can make an acrobatics check, and basically you just Prince of Persia your way through it. So that's how it's a good skill in combat. But otherwise, it's just a good skill if you want to be a really parkour guy.
Yeah.
Next.
Not that matters, because you're going to be able to fly at level 8 anyway.
That too, but some of us can't cast spells, Cody.
Some of us can afford, flying carpets. Or flying cauldrons.
You know what?
Or have a buddy who can cast, fly mass.
You know what?
In Pathfinder, there is an actual paste. If you smear it all over your body, it gives you the ability to fly for an hour or two. It's super gross, but hey, you can fly. It's not even that expensive.
Cody, I'm getting real sick of your stuff right now. Don't need it. Just okay. Yeah. Also. Yeah, if you didn't hear that entire conversation, Cody was kind of backed away from the mic. But you might have. And it may have sounded completely normal because audio editing. Yay! But next up on the list is appraise. Appraise is your ability to be a appraiser.
Is your ability to understand the cost of items and to haggle more effectively. Not like bluff or diplomacy, which is your ability to sort of bullshit, oh, it's gotta be this or I'm leaving. But, your ability to kind of understand what's working. And if you're gonna do it more old school, have sort of the magic items and stuff like that, this would help you identify it.
So this is not a skill that has an armor check penalty, because it's a mental skill. But it is governed by your intelligence, which kind of makes it awkward sometimes, because a lot of classes that get it don't always make use of intelligence. Yeah,
it's really, but you don't really need much more than 10 unless you're going to be, the item guy.
That's true. But, yeah, that's about all it does.
But now on to the really fun one.
Oh, my favorite, bluff.
Now, I've seen people abuse this a lot.
Yeah, it's awesome. Guys, if you get bluff as a skill, you should totally take it. Even if you've got a -5 charisma, just do it. Just do it. Anyway, on that note, this is a skill that is governed by bluff, and it is your ability to, as Cody say, bullshit people. Anytime you want to try and lie your way out of a situation, you don't want to reveal information. If you basically just want to be a snarky, lying little bastard, this is the skill for you.
Yeah, I think you could probably make a whole podcast session on when it is cool and not cool to do bluff and abuse bluff.
Yeah, you could definitely. But one note about bluff, though, is it's actually useful to martial characters, melee units.
Yeah, it's good for feinting.
Feints.
Which makes it extremely useful for rogues, by the way.
Mm-hmm. So basically what feinting does is you do a check, you roll your bluff to basically like kind of go, ha-ha, feint a guy. That was a horrible example, I'm sorry. But
it's generally not worth it at first because it takes a whole standard action. And that standard action you could have been using to actually stab the guy with your sword. But when you get a feat, you make a move action, and it's actually pretty effective.
Yeah. So, but basically what it does is it, instead of using your base AC, any person who has been feinted will use his flat-footed AC because he is now knocked off balance.
And in doing that, well, that'll come up when we talk about the rogues, I suppose.
Oh, yes. Next up is climb.
Yeah, that is your ability to climb things.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Yeah. It's governed by strength. It is susceptible to armor check penalties, and yeah, it's your ability to climb.
Which, again, you're going to be flying at level 8 anyway, so,
Yeah, and if you're a monk, special note, if you're a monk, you can actually do slow fall. Which is basically like you shove your hand into a wall and just like slide down. Like the Prince of Persia. There's a lot of Prince of Persia references.
Yeah.
But basically, onto craft. Craft. This is the skill I would love to use, but we never get to do it.
Oh my god, he's a baby about this. Like, every single time it comes up. Like, if you say the word craft, he goes, well, I never get to do craft, but I'd really like to.
I don't.
Yeah, because we got shit to do. We can't have you run your blacksmith store while the world is about to crumble apart.
Damn, I want to make a sword.
It's not even very good for that.
The
most you can make a masterwork sword, unless you're a wizard and you waste all of your feats in making magic items. And then maybe by 15th level, you can have, like, a flaming sword.
So, but as you can tell, we don't use craft very much. But craft is governed by your int, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is your ability to make shit.
The best use of craft I've ever seen was when I did it. You see, I had these arrows, and we were going up against golems. And arrows don't work well against golems because they're immune to piercing damage. You can't pierce a rock no matter how many times you hit a golem with a rapier or an arrow, it'll just bounce off.
And we'll get into damage types in a second.
You can't slash a rock, but you can bludgeon a rock. So I used my crafting check to make blunt arrows by basically just, pounding them against a wall until they lost their edge and just became kind of like ugly square shapes. The DM at the time, Trevor, I think I lost 5 arrows from it, but overall it was a good move.
But yeah, basically how it works in game is you pay a lower cost to get the crafting materials for a weapon that you want to make.
Half price.
Yeah. And then you spend 4 weeks making that shit.
Yes.
And
half the price, 100 times the trouble.
Yeah. We're not big fans of it because we don't play campaigns that have that much downtime. I think we did once, and that was because I was really whiny that time and I wanted to make a blunderbuss.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was when I was playing the Gunslinger.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
and I really wanted a blunderbuss, and you guys
boy.
just finally relented, and I was just like, yeah! got a really old shotgun. But
Blunderbusses are cool, though.
yeah, it was worth it. You can also use it to repair your items if they break.
Oh, I didn't know that. Probably because no one ever breaks items. It's kind of the code.
Yeah. Alternatively, if you have literally any spellcaster, there is a cantrip that you can cast over and over again that will automatically heal things.
Yeah.
Which is why we don't really bring it up that much. Of course, you don't just craft weapons and armor. About the most useful thing, unless you're running a really long-form campaign or you have a DM who will let you kind of work with it. Alchemy.
Oh, yeah, alchemy.
You can actually craft potions. And that's actually worth it because it doesn't take that much time.
And scrolls. And you can recharge wands as well as make them.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's pretty useful.
And it doesn't take nearly as long.
Yeah. Because you're just writing something down on a piece of paper with ludicrously expensive ink.
Yeah. Very. Up next, we've got diplomacy. Diplomacy is governed by your charisma, and it is like bluff, but truthful.
It is bluff's, friendly, trustworthy cousin.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing a paladin can get to bluff, and I actually use that to a really good extent with my paladin.
Yeah. But basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's your ability to reason with people. You don't get any kind of cool combat action with it other than parlay. Which there's no special rules for parlay. It's just, you've beaten your opponents and you're just like, hey, want to surrender?
Yeah.
So,
It does have its own combat action if you get the antagonized feat. But so does bluff, and that's probably for another time.
Yeah. Next up, we got disabled device, which is governed by your dexterity. It is subject to your armor check penalty, and you can only use it if you are trained. And this is...
You don't have to be a rogue to use it, but yeah, you kind of do.
Yeah. It's mostly what you're going to be using it for is lockpicking.
Lockpicking, disabling traps, but traps don't really happen a lot in Pathfinder.
Yeah, well, not with us anyway. I think a lot of people do.
Not really. Not on the forums.
Oh, okay.
That's probably why people say that rogues are underpowered, because they have this whole array of abilities that never even come up.
No, they don't. There's not a whole lot to say about it other than, yeah, that's what it does. You can also use it to maybe take the wheel off a wagon. Maybe loosen the tyings on a chandelier so it'll fall at a certain time. There's stuff you can do with it, but mostly it's lockpicking. Mm-hmm. In a kind of combat / adventuring sort of thing. But again, to note that a lot of these skills are subject to your imagination. And there are an infinite number of creative ways to use them.
A clever player can do a lot with any of these, even the ones we've been making fun of, like climb and craft. If you have a smart player and a cool DM, you can get a lot of mileage out of even the crappiest skills.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, you're trying to have fun, so...
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the skills are sort of your license to do cool things, are not explicitly stated as what you can do.
So, yeah. Moving on to the next one, we've got Disguise. This is actually one I like a lot. If you're noticing a pattern here, I like to play really skill-heavy guys with bluff kind of stuff.
And a lot of the skills he likes is also completely negated by magic items. Actually, only one magic item called the Hat of Disguise, which will disguise you as pretty much anybody you like, as long as it's wearing a hat. It's not even a very expensive one.
No, it's not. Of course, it is subject to detect magic.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, high levels you're probably going to want to go, disguise.
Got you there, Cody.
A little bit.
I'm doing a victory dance.
Yeah.
Anyway, disguise. It is your ability to make yourself look like someone else. It is governed by charisma. Strangely enough, well, not strangely enough, but a lot of classes don't really get it. Off the top of my head, Bard and Rogue.
There's some archetypes of Ranger that do. The Urban Ranger. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the Urban Druid.
Yeah. But yeah, it can be a very, very fun skill.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. If, you're doing a stealthy campaign, if you're doing something where you'd rather, think about things and fight, which is, something I'm always a fan of.
Yeah, and there's even basically there's even like feats and tricks you can get that let you kind of do the whole Sherlock Holmes in the Robert Downey Jr. ones where you're like walking through a crowd and you just make a disguise up on the fly.
Yeah.
Which I always like doing. That's cool. But next up we got Escape Artist, which is governed by your dex and has an armor check penalty to it, but it is your ability to Houdini the shit out of things. Basically get out of bonds, go through tight places, get out of grapples, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is actually one of the few skills that are very useful in combat. Like, if you have this maxed out, I mean, you could have, like, Goro covered in tar, trained to do nothing but grapple you. He's got all four arms on you, he's biting you, and you can still slip out. I mean, it's not that hard if you're a rogue, if you got full Escape Artist.
Yeah. And so it's a pretty handy skill to have, actually. Especially, so this is actually one I would recommend most for new players behind like Perception and Stealth.
Yeah.
Because it'll get you out of a lot of situations.
I would actually not recommend Stealth to a new, because that will get you into a lot of situations.
That's true. Well,
It's a dangerous skill.
It's a dangerous skill, but someone's got to do it. Fly. This is based on your dex. It is subject to armor check penalty. It is not your ability to fly on your own.
Unfortunately.
But, actually it is.
No, it's your ability to fly well, if you could fly at all.
Yeah. So when I said it was not your ability to fly on your own, it sort of is. You have to have a means of flight, but basically fly is your ability to maneuver things while flying.
9 times out of 10, even if you're a character that flies automatically, it won't come up. Either you fly or you can't. This is more about things where, if you're going to do some skillful flying, or if you're going to outmaneuver another flying opponent, like, generally it goes with size. Like, a large dragon is a very clumsy flyer, and, a hummingbird is a very skillful flyer. You kind of get the idea.
And, I mean, the main thing you're going to be using this for is if you get hit while flying. Because basically, if you get hit while flying, you'll start falling. But the DC, or the difficulty check, that you have to roll over to stop from that is a 10. So it's really, really easy to get over. Even if you have no skill whatsoever in flying. Just on the strength of your dex bonus. Moving on to Handle Animal. This is a weird one. It is governed by your charisma, and you can only use it trained. But it's your ability to work with animals.
To train them, to befriend them, to get them to calm down. If your DM gives you some time, and you don't mind, like, really pissing off your players by going off and doing your weird side quest, you can basically just be full Pokemon Master and just tame all the animals in the forest if you have enough time. Take them home with you. Make them your pets.
We've never done that.
Thank God.
Yeah. What was that?
People actually put points in it.
Yeah, I put points in it. That was our producer, Trevor.
What? Yeah.
He was nosing. He was knowing that people also put points in handle animal.
I never do.
I do if I'm a ranger.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing a druid, and like that was kind of the big thing you get as a druid, and I was like, nah, whatever. But if you want to be, I really don't know what to say about handle animal. I'm going to be honest. I kind of don't know why.
We already said pretty much everything there was to say about handle animal. Is the ability to work with it. Oh, you can also train animals if you have them. You can teach them tricks, but like the crafting skill, it takes too damn long.
And if you are someone who starts with an animal companion, you know them all anyway.
Yeah,
which is kind of why I was struggling there for a bit, because I kind of don't know why handle animal exists, other than your ability to like get animals to like you better. And the next skill on our list is one called Heal.
Which is also never used.
Although it seems like it should be.
Yeah, I think in a more hardcore game, a more endurance-based game, a game where a lot of the low-level enemies are poisonous, this would come up a lot more.
As it stands, though, we end up using like once a campaign, maybe, if anyone has it at all.
Yeah, in my campaigns, I'm no offense, but I'm just not sure if you guys are hardcore enough to handle me giving you all the diseases. And I'm not sure if I could stop. Like, if I started giving you guys lice, you would just have like mummy rot every time you use the public bathroom.
See, this is where my session with the monk comes to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, because as he loves to point out,
monks are immune to disease.
Yeah.
And poison.
Which never come up anyway.
No, it doesn't, because, you know, it just doesn't. But basically, heal is governed by your wisdom. Oddly enough, you don't have to make it trained, which is weird. You can play amateur doctor all you want. But basically, yeah, it's your ability to identify ailments, stitch up wounds, and that kind of thing. It's really not that useful in a world where magic is a thing.
Yeah, where every town has a priest that can, regrow limbs, maybe, just maybe bring back the dead.
I mean, you, at low levels, sure, because if someone takes a really hard hit and you can't restore stuff like ability damage or negative levels, you can't do negative levels, but you can do ability damage with, I don't think you can do negative levels.
Probably not.
No, it doesn't.
That's fairly esoteric.
Yeah. But basically, you can heal ability damage, which is damage done directly to your ability score, with a heal check, provided it's not too egregious, like, someone lopped your arm off. Heal check's not going to help you there. But it's just, it's kind of a skill you don't really need, I want to say.
Maybe at low levels.
But I mean, I always have it when I play monk because it's like the only other skill I have.
A lot of these skills are maybe low levels.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah, it's intimidate. This is a skill I want to use, but I never do. It's governed by your charisma.
It's pretty much how it sounds. You intimidate a person into doing what they want. This can often have negative consequences. Making them dislike you, making them call the police. I mean, it's a short-term boon. It's really good against people you're never going to talk to again, ever.
And the reason I say it's a skill I would like to use but never do is because any class that could get a nice bonus from it, i.e. rogues and bards and any other character that has social skills, has bluff and diplomacy, which are objectively better.
Yeah.
And anyone who just gets intimidate, like the fighter or the barbarian, doesn't have a charisma score.
or many skills. But the flip side of that argument is probably that what else are they going to put their skills into? They don't have any class skills.
That's true. And to be fair, there is a feat you can take that will let you use your strength bonus in place of your charisma.
And there's some really fun feats you can do with Intimidate. It lets you intimidate multiple opponents at once, kind of give them the shaken ability. Mm-hmm. It is a minor debuff, but it's good en masse, and again, at low levels.
All right, this is the big one, guys. Knowledge.
I wish it was the big one.
The biggest, like the one with the most parts to it, I guess.
Oh gosh, do we have to go over like every single frame of knowledge? Because I think we just have. I think we can just get to where, you know.
We'll go down the list real quick. We won't go into in-depth in any of them, but your knowledge is basically your knowledge on a particular subject. There are like 10 knowledge skills, guys. It is ridiculous. But you do have to be trained, which is, you know, makes sense.
Yeah.
You can play amateur doctor all you want, but you better know what you're fucking doing when you're trying to recall something. You fucking hear me?
Not just anyone has knowledge and ability.
So basically...
Not just any peasant can recognize the banner of a lord, for some reason.
But again, they can all stitch up a wound just fine. If they're putting ranks in it. Anyway, basically there are... we're just going to go down the list of like the kinds of knowledges there are. First one's Arcana. Knowledge Arcana is basically a skill every spellcaster is going to have because it is your ability to identify magical stuff. Not specific spells. That is another spell entirely. But magical things going on. After that, we've got Dungeoneering, which is kind of like your monster lore.
Yeah, pretty much anything that would exist in a dungeon, which is an extremely broad term in this setting.
Yeah, it's nice. It gives you a nice bonus to kind of the knowledge, let you know what's going on with the creatures you're fighting. Next up, we've got Engineering, which is your knowledge of constructs.
And buildings, and, you know, the occasional siege. Which is, ironically enough, another thing fighters get.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's a skill you'll use if you're trying to get the specs on a construct or determine, like, the weakness of a building you're trying to bring down. Mm-hmm. You're basically an architect. Geography is exactly what it sounds like. Although, curiously enough, it is the skill that governs if you know what ethnicity and race a creature is.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just your knowledge of the land around you or of the community. Locations of communities. History is just a broad term.
Things that have happened in the past.
Yeah, it's just a broad term for all that fun stuff. Knowledge local. This is probably my favorite knowledge.
Probably the most useful.
Yeah.
It's things that are happening in the general vicinity.
Yeah, it's actually kind of the least knowledge-y of the knowledges because it also has to do with your ability to gather information. So it's a lot more active than I think a lot of the other knowledges are. But that's another good rogue skill. Knowledge nature is your ability to identify creatures, plants,
pretty much anything that runs out in the wilds. That's a pretty good broad monster identify skill.
Nobility is the next one after that, and that is basically your knowledge of the gentry and how to act in front of them.
And heraldry.
Yeah.
It is knowledge celebrity.
Planes is your knowledge of all the other kind of subdomains that exist within Pathfinder, which is mostly useful in trying to identify any kind of otherworldly creature that is coming at you with the big, scary, spiky thing that he wants to shove somewhere.
This is one of the few they're definitely going to come up in the later levels.
Yep. Knowledge religion is your ability to know religious stuff.
It's useful on demons, devils, daemons, which are all very different things.
Yeah.
That's another session.
Yeah. And then also like your ability to recognize like ancient religions or maybe like symbols on the wall or something, you know, stuff like that. And that's actually it. But basically, you'll do that was a lot less painful than I thought it would be.
Mm.
Basically, you'll make a knowledge check anytime you're trying to gather information on a certain subject. There's only one class really that gets all the knowledge skills. Bards. But every class bar like one or two gets at least one knowledge skill. And it's just it's usually a nice skill to put ranks in just because it's useful to the player to know things, and it's useful to the GM actually because it gives you a way to naturally progress your campaign and push your party in a certain direction by just saying, you know, oh, you see something magic on the ground, give me a knowledge arcane.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it is the DM asking you to make a knowledge check.
So, you know.
And that's kind of a good way to tell if, well, this is something that's going to be pertinent to the plot. This is something I should probably follow.
And this is probably my favorite jack-around skill. Linguistics. It is based on int, governed by int. You have to be trained.
Now, the raw bits of the skill don't sound impressive, but the bonus does. Basically, what it does, it is your ability to understand writing, to copy handwriting, to make forgeries. But it does have a really awesome side effect where every point of linguistics you put in, you get a whole new language.
Yeah. And basically, because there's so many different races in Pathfinder, each race kind of has its own language. Each kind of group of demons and angels has its own language. And if you put ranks in linguistics, you can know like 40 languages and be awesome. And it's something I do whenever I get the chance because the DM never remembers it's a thing. So if they try to hide information, you're just like, oh yeah? What language are they speaking?
Yeah. Which, if I want to be a dick, I'd say, well, what languages do you have?
No, you first.
No, you first.
You first. Okay, no. Anyway. But if you've got an extra skill point, I would say put ranks into linguistics. Gesundheit. I would say put ranks into linguistics just because it's just a really fun skill to have. And, you know, it's good for making forgeries, which might come up. But, moving on to the one everyone likes.
This is the one that I have a lot of opinions on.
Perception! It's governed by your wisdom. Basically, it's your ability to notice things.
Yeah. Now, in 3.5 and 3.0, this was governed by, I think, 3 different skills. Listen, spot,
and notice.
And search. But this is all 3 of those skills wrapped up into one and greater than the sum of its parts. Like, you will be very surprised at how often this skill comes up, how much you'll get penalized for not having this skill.
I think on average for us, it's like 5 or 6 times a session.
Yeah.
And I mean,
of course, it also kind of works as the, back in the old days, we would have a roll an intelligence check. The DM would say, if you're about to do something impossibly stupid, and you can say, roll a perception check. It's like, you notice right above you that there's a chandelier covered in bombs instead of candles. You probably shouldn't step under it. And you also notice there's like a little kobold like standing over there holding the rope, giggling to himself. You wonder if you should trust him.
Of course, some of the greatest moments you will ever have in your...
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Some of the best moments you will ever have is when everyone fails their perception checks.
Oh, yeah, because that scares everybody to the bone.
Because you just have to walk face first into a trap.
Yeah,
usually.
great.
And it's just so much fun. I think, how does that mantra go? The worst decisions make the best stories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's often true, I find.
Yeah. And that's just... But yeah, perception... as critical as a skill it is, there's not a whole lot of classes that actually get it as a class skill.
Yeah, there are only a few that really get it. I mean, there are only a few archetypes you could really see it being important for. Like Rangers and Rogues and Bards.
Bards get it.
Yeah, well, Bards get everything.
Yeah. Bards are skill monkeys. It's great. Anyway, but that's perception. It's a really, really nice skill to have. It's very, very useful. The next one up is perform, which is governed by...
Which is my slack-off skill.
This one is governed by your charisma. And it is it's actually a whole lot of skills, so it's like your ability to sing, your ability to give a speech, your ability to play a stringed instrument.
Summed up, it is your proficiency in playing a lute on a street corner for, like, what's your maximum? Like 20 gold a week?
Something like that. But it's again, it's kind of like linguistics, where it's a fun little jack-around skill. But an interesting thing to note is bards, the class, can actually substitute their perform skill, because perform is what they're all about, can actually substitute their perform skill, depending on which one it is, for other skills.
Which is a good thing, because their perform skill is ridiculous. It's always going to be maxed out.
Yeah. It's going to be higher than maxed out because they get bonuses to it. But other than that, though, yeah, it's a really fun kind of flavor skill as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever properly played a bard, but a lot of characters I know just have like a guitar or a flute, and they just, play it in their free time.
Yeah. It's just, a nice little touch for your role-playing pleasure. But yeah, and like I said, if you're playing a bard, get all the perform skills.
Yeah, you really, if you're not maxed out your perform, you're doing the bard wrong.
Doing it wrong. Next up, we've got profession.
This is like perform, but not as useful.
Yeah. Basically, this one runs on wisdom. You have to be trained. It's basically like any kind of odd, non-adventuring job you have.
Yeah. I like to put things in here because it's also really neat for flavor. Like,
I think this is one of the class every class gets, right?
Yes. Every class gets craft, and every class gets profession. Mm-hmm. Like, my magus, my damp fear magus, he had profession in racketeering. Mm-hmm. Because, he was kind of a mobster, he was kind of a criminal who, did stuff. Now, I remember in that campaign that you went in, my guy was an inquisitor. He was also sort of a holy prostitute for Aphrodite. And so he had profession maxed out in prostitute, and he crit more than once.
So prostitute isn't actually listed.
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yes.
Wow.
Prostitute is listed under there. I don't think racketeer is, but I think something very similar is.
Yeah, basically it kind of works like perform, where you've got, and knowledge, where you've got little sub things. And basically just any job other than adventuring that you want your adventurer to have. Yeah. Put a rank into profession.
It can also be used as a sort of ad hoc knowledge skill for anything pertaining to that profession. So it's often really useful. Like the min-maxers, if they put anything in profession, they're going to put it in sailor or soldier or mercenary. Actually, sailor, you can get some good buffs in that. It can work basically as your ride check in mounted combat. But again, that's more of an advanced tip.
Yeah. All right, next up, we've got ride, That is based on your dex, and it is subject to your armor check penalty.
This is really about as useful as if you want to ride a thing. If you do, max it out. If you don't, you probably put 5 points in it so you don't fall off your horse if you ever ride one.
There's a lot of stuff, like little things to it, but it's not really...
Yeah, I think that's all the moves you can do with a mount over there.
By the way, I'm
stay in saddle.
I'm looking at a kind of a big PDF collection of all the Pathfinder stuff called Masterwork Tools.
Yes, Masterwork Tools, Pathfinder. Really useful.
It's actually free because Pathfinder is an open source.
Yes, which all things based on 3rd edition pretty much have to be.
Yeah. So it's called Masterwork. It's on iOS and Android. And this is actually the thing we use to kind of get all our information from. Alternatively, if you don't... it's really good if you don't want to drop $60.
That being said, you should probably still support them.
Yeah, they're cool guys.
Because, they worked really hard on this stuff.
Paizo, we mean.
Yeah.
The guys who made Pathfinder.
And there's just awesome artwork.
Yeah, there is.
And there are still some proprietary things that are not in there, like the gods.
Exactly, yeah. And also, if you don't want to drop... if you're okay with not having a physical copy, but a PDF version, if you go to Paizo.com, actually...
They have a good price on that.
You can get basically every major book for the price of the core rule book, which is about $60. So that is about, like I said, like 1,000 pages of content.
At the very least. I think that's a conservative estimate.
Yeah, and so that'll get you all the races, all the classes, all the classes, because
Yes, all the classes.
All the advanced class guide is out. It's a thing.
I don't think we'll get to the advanced class guide about Season 3, Season 4.
Yeah, somewhere around there we've actually had a chance to play them.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that's the ride check. It really isn't going to come up unless you're riding something, obviously. So if you're playing a class that is focused on that, like the Cavalier, or you're playing a character that's focused on that, it's good. Otherwise, not really much use for it.
No.
Next up, we got Sense Motive, and this is actually kind of the other perception skill.
Yeah, this is especially useful for paladins because they can't lie, and this is kind of their way of making sure no one lies to them. Keeps you from being sort of the stereotypical paladin.
Yeah. This is, Sense Motive specifically is your ability to discern untruth or lies. It's based on wisdom. And again, this is another one that not a lot of classes get, really.
No.
The big skill monkey classes get it, and then like
clerics and paladins, inquisitors. I think that's pretty much it.
It's about it. But it is monks.
Oh, also cavaliers and samurai because they are social fighters.
Yeah. But if you have it, I would recommend getting it because there's a good chance the rest of the party doesn't. But yeah, basically, if you think someone's trying to lie to you, you roll a sense motive.
Yeah.
And they'll use either their bluff or whatever skill to try and beat it.
Now, a good DM will do that even if they're telling the truth, just to throw you off.
Totally.
So don't trust, just because they roll, doesn't mean they're actually lying.
It's balancing.
And just because you get an answer, doesn't mean it's the truth. It just means you know it to the best of your abilities.
Yeah. But, that's sense motive. Next up, we've got Sleight of Hand. Now, this is a skill based on your dex. It is subject to your armor check penalty, and you have to be trained to do it.
This is the other big rogue skill.
Yes. Basically, it's your ability to pass secret notes in class. It's good for if you're trying to hide a weapon, if you're trying to, again, do a little magic trick to make a coin disappear, to kind of pass a note along secretly.
Pretty much if this is your first time playing an RPG, you'll be using this skill in the first tavern to pickpocket patrons until you get caught and start a fight. And then all your friends have to get in a fight because of you. If they're real friends.
Yeah. That's how you tell. That's how you tell if they're real friends. You go around making untrained sleight of hand checks.
Yeah.
But we'll get to how skills work later. Spellcraft. This is a skill.
It's actually really useful, even in high levels.
Yeah. This is based on your int. You have to be trained. And it's your ability to identify what that motherfucker over there is casting.
Yep.
You'd think, if a guy is like charging up a big ball of fire coming at you, you could just go, oh, that's probably a fireball. No. It has to be a spellcraft trick.
It's not like in anime that the wizard isn't just going to say, fireball!
Yeah, or like in Yu Yu Hakusho, where like the whole screen stops and there's a big black stamp with the name on it. Boom! Anyway. But yeah, it's mainly your ability to identify a spell. Which is insanely useful.
It can be.
But also magic items as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That's about all I want to say on that one. Up next, we have Stealth, which is based on Dex and is subject to your armor check penalty.
This will get you into so much trouble. The Stealth kill has killed more rogues than any single enemy.
Yeah. But it is exactly what it sounds like. It is your ability to move around unseen. And it's kind of worked for us in the past. It's mostly hasn't.
The one caveat about the stealth skill is you're only stealthing yourself. You can't stealth along with the big half-orc and full plate. So you're stealthing alone, and you're going to have to keep making rolls. And the more rolls you make, the more likely you are to, roll a 1. And when you roll a 1, that's the time you're going to be, you
have that one DM who always rolls 20s on perception.
Yeah. That's a Trevor anecdote there.
We should tell you that story sometime. But, you're only, if you're sneaking in a group, you're only as strong as your weakest sneaker. But another thing to know about stealth is don't forget about it in combat. Because what you can do is you can do what's called a hide check that can let you kind of disappear off the battlefield.
If you can distract them.
Yes, which is where bluff comes in, because that's another combat thing you can do with bluff, where you make a bluff check first and basically go, hey, look, a distraction. And then if it works, you can make a hide check with your stealth. So if you're in a really bad spot as a rogue or as a bard or as a sneaky monk, that is an option available to you to maybe get out of a dangerous situation and get away and heal. But other than that, it's exactly what it sounds like. You want to go ahead and scout ahead. Just be like, all right, I'll stealth ahead.
But don't scout too far.
No.
Don't get greedy.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Survival. This is based on wisdom.
It is your ability to hunt and forage.
And track.
Especially track. Because generally, by level 3, you're going to have enough money to buy all the food you're going to eat for the rest of your life. But yeah, tracking is very useful if you're in a wilderness setting. And that's...
It's about all you're going to use survival for anyway.
Pretty much. Not much more I can say about that.
Yeah.
If you're a ranger, no one else needs to have survival because that's their skill.
Yeah.
They get all the bonuses.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the most critical of skills, guys. Swim. Swim is based on your strength, and it is subject to your armor check penalty. And if you've ever watched The Legend of the Hidden Temple, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I would like to say swim is probably the shrine of the silver monkey of skills.
Now,
it will end good players.
It has been an ambition of mine to get all of you on a boat and to have you fight a kraken. And the kraken's first move is going to be to grab the guy with the highest armor and just not even grab him, just, push him off the boat. And then, he's like, roll a swim check. Oh, you didn't put any points in? Too bad. It's a -10 because it's a hurricane. And there's a battle going on.
Yeah.
And then I will kill someone because he did not max out his swim check.
It is something that happens quite often, actually, where everyone is just like, I don't need swim. No, you need swim. Trust me.
Put a couple points in it.
Yeah, because the thing about swim is it's actually one of the few skills that are kind of, God, what am I trying to say? Exclusive to melee type characters.
I think a lot of people have swim, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of the more useful ones to melee because it's one of the few.
Strength.
It's one of the few you get. It's one of the few that's going to go off the skill you really, really have, which is strength.
If you have heavy armor, you should have it just in case. At least 5 points.
Because what's going to happen is the armor check penalty, if you're decked out in full plate, is you're going to start sinking like a rock because you're trying to swim in 50 pounds of metal.
Bare minimum.
But yeah, it doesn't sound like it'll ever come up, but if you're playing against a smart and particularly malicious DM,
bingo,
you will it can screw you over if you're not careful. It's one of those skills where it doesn't do anything until you forget you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. And the last one is use magical device. It is based on charisma.
This is either the most useful or the least useful, depending on what kind of campaign you have.
Yeah, it's based on charisma. You can only do it trained. And it's your ability to use magical items.
Yeah.
So if you're using a magical item just like off the bat, like you find a wand on the ground, pick it up, you have to do a use magic device check because you don't know how it works. And so that's basically you trying to figure out how it works.
And you get bonuses, penalties based on whether or not you are the same class, whether it's divine or arcane magic.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much that.
Yeah. So, and that's, how it works. And I think I forgot to go over this, but kind of how you determine skills is how high your skill check is when they call for a skill check.
Add it to your intelligence. That's another good reason to have intelligence, no matter who you are.
Use magic device?
Skills.
Yes. Skills.
And use magic device.
Yeah. If you have a high intelligence modifier, you actually get your intelligence modifier as a bonus to your skill points. So that's if you want more skills, you take a higher intelligence. But basically, if someone calls for a skill check, is you roll a 20-sided dice, and then whatever that number is, you add your basically your total modifier for your skill to it, and that's the skill check. And some skills actually oppose each other, like bluff and sense motive. Bluff is your ability to lie. Sense motive is the other guy's ability to tell if you're lying, and whoever rolls higher wins, basically. And that's how skill checks work. But we're going to move on to kind of the other facet of customization, which is your feats. And feats are kind of little abilities you can take to kind of customize out, gear out your character. And mostly how it works is you get 1 feat at first level, and then you get 1 every odd level after that.
Unless you're a human and you get 2 feats.
At first level. A good majority of classes actually get kind of what called bonus feats.
Mm-hmm.
Fighters are the undisputed king of feats, and we will get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, there's too many to go over, but they all do a wide variety of things. Like we've kind of alluded to them. They can help you craft. They can improve your saves. They can improve your initiative. They can give you extra abilities in combat. It's all depends on what you do.
Yeah, they're pretty good for pretty much if you have a concept, you're going to need feats to get there to the open point.
Yeah. And I was going to say something. Oh, what do you think, just as a base, what are some good feats to look at?
I always go with the combat maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to want to get either power attack, or combat expertise. Those will give you this boost to damage or attack at the cost of your damage or attack. Not that useful to me. But you can use that as stepping stone to getting any number of the combat maneuver feats. You can use a combat maneuver pretty much out of the box, but if you do without the feats, you take an attack of opportunity. Attack of opportunity, which is a whole other can of worms. But basically, the safe way to do it is to get a feat.
Yeah.
The reliable way to do it is to get a feat.
So,
really, just know what your fighting style is going to be before you play the game, and research feats.
Yeah. Good ones to know are things like the base ones are power attack, combat and combat expertise, like Cody said. Those will let you into a whole realm of other feats. If you're playing a melee character or a ranged kind of physical character, weapon focus is good.
Oh, also, if you're a ranged character, get precise attack.
Yeah.
Your friends, they won't thank you, but they will hate you if you don't get it.
Yeah, so basically, if you're making a ranged attack and you don't have precise shot, there is a small chance that when you're shooting into melee, you will hit one of your friends if you miss with the ranged attack.
Yeah.
It's pretty
brutal.
Yeah.
It's small chance, but it's a good way to ruin friendships since you just had that one little feat, you're going into archery.
You might as well.
Everyone's going to say, why didn't you get precise attack? I don't know, because I'm a selfish asshole and I just want to get damage. I could have had, your save to think about, but then I could also get like an extra d6 of damage. What am I supposed to do? No one's going to like you for that.
Yeah, and basically, feats aren't just limited to combat either. They also can help improve your skills and crafting and your ability to do magic. That's another thing. Yeah,
if you want to be a cool flavor guy, you should invest into the Sorcerer Bloodline feats. That is, if you got skill focus in certain skills, you can get Sorcerer Bloodlines, which gives you spells no matter what your class is, and weird abilities.
So, it's a very kind of customizable. We could do a whole podcast just on feats.
Yeah.
But I think it's best to kind of figure out feats on your own. But basically, just kind of, they're all actually marked in 3 categories. And if you kind of go off the feats we kind of named off there, I think you'll start to get an idea of what you're doing. So we're going to move on from there to... we're going to talk about gear a little bit, I think.
All right.
So basically your gear is your gear. We're going to go over a few, just the main ones, weapons, armor, and enchantments to those weapons and armor. So your weapon, each class has what's called weapon and armor proficiencies, and it's basically what your character can do, what he's trained in. You can wear and use items that are not proficient in, but you take a massive penalty to it. And spellcasters actually can't wear anything higher than like light armor without having to deal with what's called arcane spell failure chance.
It's just high enough to make it more of a nuisance than it's worth.
Yeah, and you don't want arcane spell failures. Those
no.
Horrid, as Trevor loves to point out. Okay. But, like we said, we'd get to it. Again, if you're wearing a higher... It's all in the charts, on the books, and in the things. But basically, you have to make sure you know any kind of armor has what's called an AC bonus, which is the base bonus you get to your AC, just straight up. But also, you have what's called a max dex bonus on a lot of things, and anything in the light armor or higher has a max dex bonus, and the lighter the armor is, the higher the dex bonus you'll have. And so your maximum dex bonus is the maximum modifier you can get from that armor because it restricts. So say full plate gives you a +9 AC bonus, but has a max dex bonus of 1.
0. You do not get any dexterity bonus if you are in full plate.
So even if you have a +4 dex, you can't add it if you're wearing full plate. And so that's kind of where it becomes a balance.
So you've just wasted 4 ability points.
Unless you're a fighter, and we'll get to that next time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, base fighter. But weapons, they're kind of done up into like 3 main things: simple, martial, and exotic. And
those are done into 3 things: melee, thrown, and range. But that's kind of self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. But basically, simple weapons are stuff like, clubs, farming tools,
a dagger, daggers. A stick,
yeah,
a large stick.
Yeah. This is what a lot of kind of the non-combat or the more specialized classes are going to have.
Yeah. Except for the monk. That is one of their weird things. They don't get all the simple weapons. They can use a kusarigama, but they cannot use a mace.
Yeah, martial weapons is any kind of medieval weapon. So stuff like
a longsword.
Longsword.
A short sword.
Guisarme.
A broadsword.
Greatsword. Mace, Morningstar.
Mace and Morningstar are actually simple weapons, oddly enough. Even the Morningstar is a really good weapon.
Oh, okay. Warhammer, Warpick, Longspear.
Flail. My favorite.
Bow, crossbow. I'm going to get more than Cody. It's gonna
a Nodachi. A Naginata counts as a martial weapon.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, on to that note, exotic weapons are, except for the Naginata and Nodachi apparently, any kind of like Eastern style weapon. So kusarigamas, katanas.
Bastard swords.
Really?
Well, it's weird how it works, actually.
And firearms.
If it's two-handed, it's a martial weapon. If it's one-handed, it's an exotic weapon.
Gotcha.
Same with the Dwarven War Axe and the Dwarven Urgosh.
Yeah, there you go.
And the gnomish hammer pick thing.
That's a real weapon, guys. The gnomish hammer pick thing.
It's
Go look it up.
real. I saw it.
I saw a gnome using it. He cleaved through 3 kobolds like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it is not.
Our producer Trevor just said the ultimate weapon is the shovel.
Yeah.
He's right, actually.
All 3 types of attacks.
It can do all 3 kinds of damage, which is a nice segue into damage types. Damage types. There's 3 main kinds. There you got piercing, slashing, and blunt. And basically it's just the kind of damage a weapon does. So, skimtars slash people, rapiers stab people, so it's piercing. And
sticks bludgeon people.
And it usually won't come up, but some monsters have resistance to certain kinds.
Like I explained earlier, you can't slash or puncture a rock, but you can conceivably crush it.
Which is why blunted arrows do full damage.
Yes. Kind of cheap, kind of rules lawyering my way out of it, but I'm still glad I did it.
Yeah. But basically the thing to know about kind of the more technical stuff is your damage dice is the kind of damage you roll when you're doing damage, and your crit is how many times you will roll that damage.
Or how easy it is to make a crit,
yes.
In the case of the rapier or the scimitar.
Yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory. But going on to enchantments, that's where it gets interesting.
Yes, it does.
I don't think we're going to go through all the enchantments because...
Oh, God, no.
Let's
please not do that.
Yeah.
That's like 2 sessions.
Yeah, so basically, kind of think of it as having... You have every piece of...
a flaming sword.
Yeah, and when you're looking to get them, every weapon and armor has, in essence, 10 slots to put enchantments on. And based on the level of the enchantment, 1 through 5 is how many slots it'll take up.
Yeah.
And the slots are kind of cumulative. So basically, if you get a cumulative when determining cost. So basically, if you were to say get keen, which is if you had a longsword, basically if you got keen, which is a +4 bonus, and let's say ghost touch was a +1, you do not pay for a +4 bonus and a +1 bonus when you want to throw those onto a weapon. You pay for a +5 bonus, and so on and so forth.
Keen is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
It makes it twice as easy to score critical hits.
And Ghost Touch is a really nice one to have on a backup weapon because
situational, because it touches ghosts.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do that otherwise.
Yeah, Incorporeal is really, really stupid.
I think it's brilliant.
It's because you use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good way to keep your people keep themselves diversified. That's another point.
Yeah. Additionally, you can just give your weapons, the +1 bonus, if you ever hear that term.
If you're boring.
Yeah. Basically, that's just a straight bonus to like all your attack rolls and damage rolls.
It is a +1 to attack and damage.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Also, Vorpal.
Oh yeah, Vorpal. That's a good one.
It is not actually that useful. It's just kind of got that chance to do something awesome.
And yeah, it's just like in the poem about the Jabberwocky. If you roll a 20, its head will fall off.
No questions asked.
If you have a Vorpal stick and you poke a dragon, 20th level ancient dragon, in the toe, if you roll a 20, his head will fall off.
It's really fun. Yeah, that's all I really want to say on enchantments. It's just a really nice way to kind of customize your loadout. There are also specific magic items and armors that do things.
And there are materials that also do things.
You should totally go through that on your own because it's really fun.
Yeah.
So, going to go through combat maneuvers and additional rules, and I think we're... so basically your combat maneuvers are Cody's... This is kind of Cody's forte, but it's your ability to do kind of different things during combat to kind of gain the edge.
Among them, probably the most commonly used one is probably grappling, where it's pretty much as it sounds. You hold on to a person, you keep them from attacking. If you have the right stuff, you can attack them while grappling. I prefer doing things like trip, because trip, you knock them down. If they come back up, you can hit them while they're getting up. You can do dirty tricks, like throw sand in their eyes. You can blind them.
It's basically like the real role play kind of thing.
With a lot of strategic value, too.
Yeah. And basically how that works is you've got your CMD, which is your combat mover defense, which is a static number. That is it's 10 plus your strength mod plus your dex mod plus your size or minus if you're small. And yeah, that's it, right? Plus any kind of miscellaneous modifiers.
Yeah, and believe it or not, that's actually simplified from 3rd edition.
Yeah. That's kind of a static number everyone has to beat to actually get a combat maneuver off on you. And then you've got your CMB, which is your combat maneuver bonus, and that is just your strength plus size, I think, right?
It's your strength plus size
your
bonus.
Base attack bonus.
Yeah, and your base attack bonus.
Which you apply to both.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And you have to beat the CMD, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't normally use them that much because I'm a very aggressive player. I like to just deal damage.
Do maximum damage.
Yeah, damage classes is kind of what I do. But Cody uses them a lot. And
probably what I get the most use out of are cold shots.
Yeah.
Where you actually hit particular parts of the body. Like, I remember once I actually stabbed a rhino in the brain and pretty much put his intelligence to like -1. Yeah, so it's a kill there.
Yeah, and it's just a really kind of different way to fight. It gives you some more options to like control the battlefield. It's really, it can be really fun. I'm actually kind of thinking about coming up with like a combat maneuver specialist.
For a fighter, it would be pretty much perfect. Fighters and rogues are really good for that.
And we're not going to go through all of them, but some additional rules that come up very, very often in combat. Flanking.
Yes.
Okay, so...
It's minor if you're not a rogue. It's pretty much your bread and butter if you are.
Yeah. So basically what flanking is, if you're fighting an enemy, and based on the positioning in the grid, if a guy gets on the other side directly across from you, and basically if the enemy you're fighting has a guy on either side of him, you two are flanking him. And gameplay-wise, that is a +2 to your attack and damage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just a straight +2 to both you and the guy your partner who are flanking.
Some people have a hard time with that.
It's really easy to kind of forget, I think.
Yeah.
But the reason we say it's the bread and butter of a rogue is this is the main way you will get your sneak attack, which is why the rogue has the highest damage output of any class in the game.
I think it's like 1d6 every other level, right?
Yeah. And it gets even worse when you get multiple attacks.
Yes.
So, we'll go over sneak attack when we get to the rogue. But, yeah, it's basically to kind of, I think, take a term from Spoonie, back up your thief.
Yeah.
Because it's even, because your thief really needs, or your rogue, if he's got backup, is one of the best damage dealers in the game.
Also, a side note, if you're interested in role-playing games in general, or Pathfinder in particular, you really ought to be watching Counter-Monkey with the Spoonie Experiment. It's really good stuff. He has really good advice. I think we both learned a lot from him.
Yeah. Of course, you should also still listen to us because we're...
Oh, yeah,
we're cool, too.
If you got time, listen to us. We need some love. We're lonely. Doing this to, make friends.
That was really sad. All right, anyway. The next one on the list we have is being prone, which is, getting on the floor.
Yeah.
That's got some good things and the bad things.
It's good if you're using a gun or a crossbow.
Yeah, because it gives you a bonus. It's also good if you're trying to avoid an archer, because it's actually harder to hit a prone target from range. I think you get a +4 to your AC if you do that.
Yes.
The caveat, trade-off, is if you are fighting a melee fighter, you take a -4 and you lose your dex bonus.
Yeah, you are pretty much literally lying on the floor for him.
Yeah. It's, which is why you should probably beware of the trip attempt, which is another combat maneuver.
Love it.
Yeah, so, you trip him, you fall on the ground, you are bait for the fighter.
And anyone else who's in melee range of you, really.
Yeah. And charging.
You have to work to make it work, but oh my god, when it does.
Yeah, so basically charging is you combine your movement and your attack into one strike. What it does is it gives you a +2 to your attack if... Okay, so to set it up here, you have to be a fair distance away from your target. You have to be 10 feet or 2 squares. And you have to have even terrain to fight. You can't go through what's called difficult terrain. But, and it's a guy, you just kind of rush the guy. And it gives you a +2 to your attack and damage, but consequently you will take a -2 to your AC because it's just an all-out blitz. Of course, I know a few DMs who, either because they don't care for it or because they just kind of forget, don't apply the AC thing. I think we usually forget about it.
Yeah, I remember. It's also very important. It depends on what kind of weapon you want. That's very, very important. Mm-hmm. A lance will give you how much damage?
It's the same damage dice, but it raises your crit modifier or something.
It does double damage, I think.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there are charging specific weapons like the lance.
And there are charging specific abilities like Pounce. That one's hard to get, but if you can get it, it's to do a full attack on a charge.
Yeah.
And full attacks are what's all about, mid to high levels.
Yeah. But other than that, charging is really good to like start off a campaign, and if you don't particularly care about your AC like a barbarian or a cavalier, it's a very good way to just take the fight to the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are three you should really probably keep in mind. There are others, but those three are kind of the ones that count the most, I think.
Oh, we didn't mention attacks of opportunity, did we?
Yeah, okay. Attack of opportunities is basically if someone is trying to do something when they're right next to you, or if they're trying to move past you, it's basically just you kind of like taking a pot shot at them. And unless you have if you have a feat called combat reflexes, you can do more than one attack of opportunity a round. Otherwise, you can only do one attack of opportunity a round, and there are a infinite number of things that give you attack of opportunity.
Yes, it's hard to know what they all are at first, but pretty much anything that would give a fighter a reason to stab you in the face if you're not like totally focusing on your defense. Like walking away from him, especially shooting a bow,
Casting spells.
throwing something.
Casting spells.
Yeah.
Casting spells is the big one. And then there are like a list of other conditions. We're not going to go into them, but basically there are other conditions out there that you need to be aware of. I don't think they come up often enough to really kind of go in depth about them, but if just kind of be aware they're there, like blinded, dazzled, fatigued, stuff like that. It's there are other things, but like those kind of four are the ones that come up the most. So with that, we're gonna move on to kind of the final part and kind of the biggest one, which is magic spells. Okay. So first things first. If you're playing a spellcaster, there are two different ways you're going to get your spells. You either just kind of know them, in the case of the bard or
The
sorcerer, or I think cleric.
No,
clerics.
clerics don't know them automatically. They're technically spontaneous spellcasters, but I think they like rules as written wise. They do, but role-playing wise, they get them from the gods.
Mm-hmm. So, spells known is basically, you'll have a chart that says, spells known and the level of the spells.
Yeah.
And you pick those spells, and those are just your select set of spells. You can change them out, but you can't do it on the fly. You have to, be waiting a day.
Yeah. Divine casters pretty much always just know all the spells, and about half of the arcane casters do as well.
Yeah. And we'll get to divine versus arcane in a second. But spells. Sorry about that.
The CEO of our company, Trevor.
He's the CEO now? Okay.
He's going places.
He is. I mean, he is just a sexy, sexy man. Anyway. What were we doing? Right. Spells known. And then the other way you will get spells onto your spell list is to have a spell book, or to get them from your god, as Cody said. Mm-hmm. And spells known, generally what the trade-off is if you have known spells, you have a more limited set of spells, but you get more of them per day. If you have a spell book, you get less spells per day, so you can't cast as much, but you get a greater variety in the spells you can do. And so that's kind of the trade-off of those. And your spells per day... spells per day is basically how many spells you can cast per day. It goes by the chart. That'll be on your character information thing in the book. The character information thing. Worthy of note is every spell is governed. Every class is governed by a certain kind of stat, either intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. And basically, if you're playing a spellcaster, whatever stat governs your spells is the one you should be pumping up.
Yeah.
So basically, wizards, all their spells run off intelligence. Clerics, it all runs off wisdom.
No one gives the mage crap for min-maxing their mental skill and dumping strength.
Yeah. But yeah. The thing though is if you have a high modifier, there is a table. I think it's in the stats. It's in the stats book. I think it's
your bonus spells?
Yeah, your bonus spells where you get extra spells per day. You don't get extra spells known, but extra spells per day. So you can cast more per day if you have a high modifier in the stat that influences your spell, which you should. Unless you want to play like a really pathetic spellcaster, which you can. That's a perfectly valid role-playing option, but...
Yeah, if you have a 10 intelligence, I mean, you can still cast cantrips.
Nothing else but cantrips.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, if you don't have a modifier, it actually limits the spells you can do.
Yeah, your spellcasting level is basically your stat minus 10. So you need a 9 in your max skill if you want to be a full caster.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
You have to start out with 9, but you're kind of going to want to work with that.
Because, anyway. God, where was I going with this? Spells per day, DCs, difficulty checks. Basically, if you're going to throw a spell at anyone who doesn't want you to throw a spell on them,
they get try and resist it.
They get a chance to resist it. And what that means is basically the saving throws we talked about, fortitude, will, reflex. Each spell has a saving throw attached to it, and if they will roll that, and if they get higher on their save than your DC, then they actually resist the spell and it doesn't work. But basically your DC is 10 plus your caster level plus the level of the spell, 1 through 9, plus... No, it doesn't do your caster level. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your caster level. It's your spell level.
Yeah, it's 10 plus the spell level, with 1 through 9, level 1 spell, level 9 spell. Or, and then you also add in the ability that influences your spells. So intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, depending on your class.
Yeah. Another thing I think that was simplified from 3rd edition, believe it or not.
Yeah, that was simplified. If all the stuff that goes on in spells kind of puts you off from spellcasters, don't worry, it puts a lot of people off.
And you can be a perfectly effective guy and not even think about spells.
Yeah. It's like perfectly okay if you don't want to do it like on your first time. I know I didn't.
Me neither, actually.
But
nowadays I love spellcasters, but back in the day I was pretty wary of them. Yeah. And I was right to be.
Yeah. The other thing is preparation. Basically, it's kind of the weakest part. What makes the spellcaster kind of it's the weakest link in their chain.
Yeah.
Because what happens is every spellcaster has what's called a preparation. Even people who have spells known who kind of cast on talent, like sorcerers.
Yeah.
Where basically they have to rest for like a full night and then kind of study and pick their spells. And that's where, if you have spells known, you can swap out your spells. Wizards who have spellbooks kind of do what's called preparing them. They prepare the ritual, so they just have it ready and they can cast it. But yeah, basically, if you don't get a full night's sleep, if you don't have the time to prepare them, you actually don't get them back, and that's actually where a lot of DMs will hit you if you're not careful.
Yeah, a particularly cruel one will... Yeah. Actually, that's pretty much the strategy of a dungeon, is to get the mage to wear out his spells. So when the boss comes around, he's a useless sack who can only, throw a sling.
Yeah.
If he thought to get a sling.
Yeah. But there are so many spellcasting classes, and we will get to them eventually. But one last thing about spells. Concentration checks.
Oh, yeah.
So this is why you don't want to be in combat. Basically, the concentration check is your ability to cast a spell while someone is, waving a sword in your face.
Yes.
So if you try to cast a spell next to someone who is not your ally and who has a sword, and who has a disposition to stab you, you have two options. You can either let that dude hit you, or you can try to cast defensively. And either way, you're going to have to do what's called a concentration check. And the DCs are different. If you cast defensively, you have to do a D20 plus your caster level, which is your level, plus the ability mod that governs your spell, intellect, wisdom, or charisma.
That is actually something that was made more complicated in this.
Yeah.
In 3rd edition, concentration was just a skill.
Yeah.
You went by your concentration skill, and if you passed, you made it.
And this is especially devastating at low levels.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because you're not going to have a chance, buddy. So, but basically, it'll be the DC, if you're casting defensively, is 15 plus double the level of the spell you're casting. So, if you're casting a level 1 spell, it would be 15 plus 2 at a 17, and you would have to roll higher than a 17 to get the spell off correctly. The other option is you let the guy hit you. That can actually be better, because if the guy hits you, it is the damage dealt plus the spell level. That is the DC. So if a fighter hits you, you take 6 damage, and you're casting a level 1 spell, your concentration check is 7 as opposed to 17. But you did just take 7 damage. So,
yeah.
Which you will probably not have 7 health as a level 1 wizard.
No. You're a D6 damage, and you dumped Constitution to get a high intelligence.
So, just...
Because that idea was never going to backfire.
But, yeah, I mean, basically that's concentration checks. It's a very fine balancing act. And I think the best thing to do with concentration checks is just to not have to do concentration checks.
Yeah, now in high levels this doesn't come up as much because you can fly, and you're ethereal, and you're a cloud of sand, and anyone that comes near you just has an aura of fear and pain.
Though you do have to watch out for snipers.
Yeah.
Just saying. But otherwise, yeah, at higher levels, the other thing is you're going to have a way higher bonus. So you'll be able to get it pretty quickly. But other than that, that's when I'm going to wrap it up here real quick with some recommended habits. I think I'll start. Basically, you've got a lot of empty space on your character sheet. Always make sure to use it to kind of keep track of your special abilities, how many you have during a day, what the DCs of those special abilities are.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to forget what your class can do. But if you just have it right there on the character sheet right in front of you, it's easier to remember. It'll help the game flow a lot faster if you just have it all written down. And I guess the other thing I would say is that dinky little space you get for spells on the back of the page ain't gonna do shit, son.
Yeah, a lot of those you're gonna need to write the descriptions on. You're not gonna be able to fit all the spells on there. You're just gonna be able to fit your favorites.
So, kind of what I do, and this is why I'm not too big on playing casters, is I get a couple sheets of copy of printer paper, and I just staple into my character sheet, and it's got the level and all my spells categorized in levels, and I just pick them. And I just have a quick cheat sheet of spells I use.
Now, I will just write down the name and look it up between turns, because by the time you're doing large and complicated spells, you're in later game, and in later game turns take a much longer time.
Yeah.
And that would lead me to my biggest tip. Be prepared. By the time it's your turn, have a plan, have a course of action, and buy rope. And in early levels, have at least 100 feet of rope. Bare minimum.
And an empty bag.
Yes. Get good bags. It wouldn't hurt you to buy a donkey to store all your stuff. Bags.
Plus, you can use the donkey as bait.
Pitons, which are like little climbing spikes. A crowbar. Crowbar or a long stick.
And a shovel.
Yeah.
Because it's the ultimate weapon.
And it's just really useful. Yeah. Just make sure you have some weird, cool thing that may not come up every session, but when it does, I mean, everyone's going to think, oh, hey, he's really smart.
Oh, one thing. Okay, in Ultimate Equipment, there is an item called Liquid Ice. Get a vial of that. I don't care what class you are. It is so cool.
What does Liquid Ice do?
Okay, so Liquid Ice. It's like my favorite alchemical thing. Basically what it does is it's a little vial that doesn't do anything until you open it. And then when you open it, you kind of fling it out and it turns into a short sword made of ice.
Oh, that is rad.
Yeah. Really, truthfully, it's only going to be useful if you're playing a martial character or a rogue because it's very easy to sneak in. But
yeah,
it's a short sword made of ice.
Character, you'd be much better with a short sword made of metal. Not gonna lie.
Well, it's kind of like a backup weapon or an easy to sneak in weapon. It's got the fragile state, so if you roll a 1 with it, it's going to shatter. Yeah. But it's so cool.
Pun not intended.
All right, but yeah, it's just something I want to say because it's so cool. Anyway. Yeah, I think that's about it. Whew. I think this is going to be like a much longer thing than it usually is.
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of ground here. I mean, we overviewed a very big game. It's basically kind of the culmination of 40 years of this one game.
Yeah, so podcasts will probably be a lot shorter since we're only going like a class at a time, basically. But, yeah. If you're listening to the end of this, thanks for sticking around. Hope you come back next week, and hope you come back next week when we start launching into the classes,
which is what the show's really about.
Yeah,
this is really a primer.
We just wanted to make sure you guys had at least something resembling kind of a level playing field, even if it doesn't kind of make all that much sense. We kind of rambled and jumped around there, but hopefully that helps a little bit at least. Kind of explain what kind of the concepts behind a lot of these mechanics to help you maybe internalize them better. But next week, we're going to do the basest of the base classes. We're going to launch into the fighter.
Yes.
And basically how that's going to go is we're going to start off with the fighter. What does he do? Why do you want to play one? What are his abilities? What makes him good? And archetypes. We're going to go into archetypes. And then we're going to round the show off with Cody and I are going to bring in our own characters. The kind of characters we come up with that are going to be about level 5, any archetype with about 5,000 gold points. And we're just going to see kind of what we come up with those kind of parameters. And I think that'll also help kind of internalize a lot of the concepts if you kind of see an example.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that next time. And
and buy 10 daggers. At the very minimum, 10 knives. Another tip.
Okay. Cool. Also, sand.
Oh, yeah. Sand, very useful.
Yeah. Also, a bottle of air. Cabbages. Cabbages are good.
Oh, yeah. You should bring food. You're never going to know when you need food.
Yeah. Also, barmaids.
Never trust a barmaid.
No, never. It's a succubus. Trust me. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. And if you want to stick around, we would love to have you. We'd love to talk about it. We love this. This is kind of a game. This is kind of something we love doing. So we'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on it and get something started.
Like, subscribe, tell us that we're pretty, tell us that we're special, tell us that we really exist.
Yes, please. This is really why we're doing this. We're actually just two very lonely men sitting in a dark room with just one light. Please, we need it. We need it so bad. Anyway, that's all the time we have. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you back next week. Bye.
Ta-ta.